Well, hello and welcome to a special broadcast on behalf of Australian Property Investor Magazine. I'm Kevin Turner from Real Estate Talk. With me on screen, firstly, Dean Yeo, who is a seller's agent, as they're typically was what they're being called nowadays. And Dean is with the professionals in New Farm. And also Zoran Solano, a buyer's agent. So we've got both sides of the scenario here. Zoran is from Metropole Properties in Brisbane, as I said, buyer's agent. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I just wanted to run through the topic here is the questions that a buyer should be asking an agent. And I guess these are some of the questions you're asking all the time, Zoran. But I might just start with the first one. How long has the property been on the market? Dean, from your perspective, why would that be important to a buyer?
Well, it's a bit like a use-by date. As far as to a buyer, that really on the internet, it's pretty much between the first even 7 to 14 days is when they see it's new, it's fresh, and people want to know something about it. Realestate.com is a prime example. Have a big new on their ones for the first 5 days. They send out an alert, within 24 hours. Most people want to see what's new and fresh. They want to know, they want to be right up to speed. If it's over 30 days, it's also just seen that people step away from it after that period of time, or they've already looked at it and discarded it. That's why, hence, on realestate.com, they refeature it again at 30 days.
So, Zoran, from your point of view, I guess you'd be sort of sweating on these new properties all the time to see what's new on the market?
Yeah, look, constantly reviewing the properties coming through our alerts on realestate.com, as Dean said, very popular portal. Also, our agent database that contact us directly with new and upcoming listings as well. We're constantly looking at that. And again, it's straight on to fresh property. Is really good, being the first one in the door. So monitoring and considering property quickly. As Dean said, the longer property are on the market, the less they go down the rankings. Sorry, the more they go down your rankings on realestate.com, they start to get stale. And as Dean would know, the longer it's on there, the buyer activity is best at that, first 14 days. So buyers need to be, in there at that time. Adversely, though, if you see something that's been floating around a while, buyers might have a good opportunity to go in and take advantage of that desperation in the failing days. Selling agents only have an exclusive appointment for so long, and if they're hungry for commission, they could be on your side to beat down the seller and get a good price. So.
I won't ask you to comment on that, Dean.
But on that point, if you use realestate.com and you go in and you do a search and you go into the search and you go from oldest to newest, then you can go in and find it out from that side.
Yeah,
so that they can then, some buyers go in and do it that way that are, looking for that bargain hunt. But most of them, it's after 60 days, the property gets a bit stinky anyway. They say, well, what's wrong with it? Why is it still there? Why hasn't it been sold?
Guys, if I could just pick up on another couple of questions I want to lump together because I want to try and get through as many of these questions as I possibly can. What was the original asking price and what offers have the sellers received? How important is that information to you, Zoran?
Yeah, very important. It gauges, what kind of appetite the seller has and what their expectations are in price, and also what other buyers are offering. Now, not every selling agent will want to tell you what other offers have been, and that's completely up to them. But I like to gauge interest, on properties, and that also helps with pricing as well. Demand versus supply, that kind of thing. But at the moment, there's a lot of interest, so that's really pushing things along.
Just from your point of view, Dean. How do you feel when a buyer or a buyer's agent asks you about the original asking price and the number of offers?
If the property is trying to be completely transparent, if the property is going to auction, which a lot of our properties are, we basically, we'll turn around and say, look, we've had some good interest, but not enough to stop the auction process, and then turn it back on. Where do you see value? What would you like to pay for it? If it's in a private treaty situation, from that side of it, very happy to say, look, we first listed it at this, we then changed it to this. Did you have an interest in it? Where do you see value? Because I have no problems. You can take a screenshot from whenever it was on the net, going forward. They can also look at on the net of how many people have seen it. So you might as well tell them, because there's, buyers are very astute, very well informed. And some of the portals also, you can go in and see at the back end, like Price Finder, what it was listed for, when it started, how long it's been on there. So you might as well be upfront. There's no good, hiding anything.
And when it comes to a buyer trying to get a price or determine a price, Dean, comparable properties, are you in the mode of actually offering them a CMA or competitive market analysis?
Well, look, obviously, we right from the start, when we take on from the listing itself, that we usually put those in on our what we call a 22A or appointment to list. So we usually have those in there and then talk to the owner saying this is what we'd like to be able to give. Because I think even in a selling situation, as far as even an auction wise, that I'd like to be able to give a buyer some form of indication so that it's not wasting theirs, ours, or anyone's time. They say, yeah, look, it's in between 1.3 and 1.5 million. Great, let's go from that. Are you in that ballpark? Because if they're down at $1 million, you know, even if they do kick off the auction and it hits $1 million, they're gone within minutes. They get annoyed, and it's just wasting people's time. So I think the answer is yes. I would certainly do it. But depending on the property, there is quite an eclectic group of properties in and around New Farm. Some of them might be riverfront with a beautiful view, and there's not a whole lot of them. So how do you compare? What is comparable? Is it 800? Is it $1 million? You give them a range.
Okay, I just want to move across to you, Zoran, and ask you a question about the question I think a lot of selling agents would be a bit wary of, and I'll get Dean's comment on this too, and that is, why are they selling? Do you ask that question firstly, and how important is the answer to you?
Yeah, look, I definitely ask, what are the motivations? That really affects my time frame of, one, assessing the property, and two, the terms and conditions of my offer as well. I like to be accommodating to both the buyer and the seller in pricing a property. I'm not here to rip anyone off. I want to pay fair market price, but under good conditions as well for my client, and short time frames for settlement, longer time frames, due diligence clauses, all that sort of thing. I like to work in with the seller as much as I can to a certain extent. Recently, I was able to secure a property $10,000 less than another multiple offer because my conditions were more competitive. And I was able to do that because I knew the motivations were that they needed the money sooner rather than later. So by shortening up my offer in time frame wise, I was able to secure the property for a competitive price.
Yeah, Zoran, I think that's a very good point you make there, and that is that a lot of people think that a negotiation is all about price when it's also about lots of other things too. Dean, what's your reaction when a buyer asks you that question?
Well, look, on behalf of the seller, my standard answer is, situation such it needs to be sold. Would you like to buy it? And put it straight back on them. In the sense that I understand no matter what the reasons are behind, if they are shared with the agent, it's not for the agent, in my professional opinion, it's not for the agent to be sharing that out. You just stipulate it, would you like to buy it? They have invested time, money, energy to market the property heavily. This is where we're at. We're in the paper. We're on the internet. We're doing all these things. Would you like to buy it? I'm happy to answer all their questions, but as far as the personal details of the actual sellers, it's none of anyone else's business. Yeah. And sometimes I don't even know.
I think too, Zoran, would I be correct in saying you're not really probing to find out if it's a divorce or a deceased estate or anything like that? You really just want to know not so much their motivation, but what timeframes can you build into the offer to make it more attractive? Is that fair comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they're selling, for their own personal private reasons. I don't really need to go too much into detail, but as much as I want to know for a reason, and that's because I want to buy the property and I want to make it the best offer I can for them. And the best offer might be short time frames or whatever the case may be. So
I just want to wrap this conversation up if I could, guys. I want to talk about building and pest inspections just to finish off. Building and pest inspections, from your point of view, Zoran, do you like to do your own, or would you rely on one from someone else, especially if it came from, say, the seller?
I actually had this very, very recently, and the report was absolutely terrible. I don't know why. Actually, no, I do know why a selling agent uses them, because it makes the property look half good. But no, it was actually, I like to use my own people. Building and pest reports are a funny thing. They always need to be written worse than it actually is, just to cover that individual's liability. So buyers have to really, have a bag of salt beside them when they read these reports and actually communicate to the inspector. I use inspectors that do photographic reports, which photos tell a million words and are the best to go off, in my opinion. I always like to encourage our clients to obtain their own reports. They are being produced to buyers, but I don't think it's something you have to go off. Really do your own homework, and that'd probably be my comment there.
Dean, from your point of view, a building and pest inspection, what would be your reaction as a buyer if I asked you for a copy of any that had been done?
If it had been done, I'd be very happy to put you in touch with the company that had done it so that you could then turn around and purchase your own from them. They are independent to us. If a seller had done one, the reason it was done is to be able to be shared. So it would be, very easy to do so. But I've had a situation in the last week where one of the people went and did a building and pest, and then a couple others late in the piece said, I'd really like to look at bidding, but I'm not going to come because I'm not going to have a chance to do that. Well, I just put him in touch with the company that did that and said, you can go and purchase that if you like beforehand, at which they did.
Gentlemen, we're probably going to wrap it up there, but I just wanted to just give you the opportunity before we do finish. We've covered a number of questions here. There are probably hundreds of questions, really, probably dependent on the type of property. Do you want to add anything to the list here that you think buyers should be asking? Zoran, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Look, there are a couple. Depending on the property, as you said, freehold property, house and land, I'd be asking, is there any easements on the property? Location of underground services. If you're looking to renovate or extend, that might have a factor in your purchase choice, but also just do a dial before you dig for your own sort of, peace of mind as well. A lot of people add decks, extensions, and don't get final council approval. So that's a big one for me. Obviously, sometimes that comes up during the conditional period of a contract and often means contracts fall over. So it's better just to know upfront yes or no, and you can make an educated decision from there. Okay,
Dean, your opportunity.
Yeah, I think the other one that probably agents don't really want to bring up, but as far as flood zones, overland flood, areas, obviously beware because the council in the overland flow side of it has sort of gone over what they needed to, but asking sellers, was there any water on the premise, during blah, 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 in 2011 or other. Outside of that, I think the comments that were made earlier as far as some of the conditions within, do they want a 30-day or a 45? Would they look at that sort of fine-tuning is good. It just shows that you're trying to, not sort of beat each other over the head, that you're trying to put a win-win situation together. But if the communication between each of them is there and the agent is there to basically try and assist that, outside of that, all good.
Just I wanted to pick up on a couple of points you've just made there. Zoran, firstly to you, you mentioned about council approvals, and I think recently we saw yet another deck collapse in Lane Cove in Sydney. We have seen a number of those in all the states all around Australia, and I guess that makes it even more important to get some detail about whether or not any building extensions have been approved, and even getting down to the building and pest inspection. And just on your point there too, Dean, about flooding, flooding is not only in Brisbane, but it's all around the country, and I guess they're the things, we're becoming much more aware of the need to ask those kinds of questions. So, guys, I just wanted to thank you for your time, to Dean and Zoran, and I wish you all the best. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. And stick around; we'll have more of these special editions coming up for Australian Property Investor Magazine. I'm Kevin Turner. We'll see you next time.